welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to discuss another important topic of macroeconomic theory, which is the ISLM model. Before discussing the introductory part of ISLM model, we need to understand why the ISLM model came into existence. The existence of the ISLM model was due to the drawbacks of the simple Keynesian model, which was the preceding macroeconomic model before the ISLM came into existence. The simple Keynesian model, as we know, was a single variable model. There was only one variable in the entire model, which was output y. So this was the only endogenous variable, and this was the reason why the simple Keynesian model faced criticism, because there are several other variables like the money supply, the wage rate, the rate of interest, the price level. These variables were assumed to be exogenous under the simple Keynesian model, but those variables in reality are not exogenous. So this assumption was somewhat unrealistic. The second point why the simple Keynesian model was criticized was it showed the equilibrium situation only in the product market. The simple Keynesian model didn't say how the equilibrium will be achieved in the wealth market, to be specific in the money and the bond markets. It only focused on the product market equilibrium. So the equilibrium that the simple Keynesian model was showing, that was kind of an incomplete picture. It was not the true picture or the complete equilibrium situation. So these were the two reasons why the simple Keynesian model faced backlash. Now we come to the ISLM model. The ISLM removed these two drawbacks of the simple Keynesian model up to a large extent. How? Firstly, the ISLM model assumed the investment to be a function of rate of interest. Simple Keynesian model assumed investment to be exogenous. Investment was simply equal to I bar, it was a constant. But ISLM assumed investment to be a function of the rate of interest. So under the ISLM model, there were two variables, y and r, unlike the simple Keynesian model, which had only one variable. The second point why the ISLM was having an upper hand over the simple Keynesian model was it linked the product market equilibrium along with the wealth market equilibrium. So unlike the simple Keynesian model, which was only showing the product market equilibrium, the ISLM linked the product market equilibrium with the wealth market equilibrium. So these 2 points were the basic reasons why the ISLM was considered to be a superior model over the simple Keynesian model. So now we come to the detailed analysis of the ISLM model. As we have already stated, ISLM is a two variable model. One variable is output and the other variable is the rate of interest, or R. What exactly does this IS stand for? The IS actually stands for investment savings equality. While analyzing the simple Keynesian model, if you recall, we know that the goods market equilibrium condition will hold when investment is equal to savings in the economy. So investment savings equality will simply imply the consumption goods market equilibrium, and the LM actually stands for liquidity preference money supply. So the LM curve, it is going to show the equilibrium situation in the money market. Now the point is, any model macroeconomy can be classified into two parts. One is the goods market and the other is the wealth market. Goods market can again be classified into two parts, as we can see. One is the consumption goods market and the other one is the capital goods market. In a similar way, the wealth market can be classified into two parts, the money market and the bond market. Now the point is, the IS is showing the equilibrium situation only in the consumption goods market, and the LM is showing the equilibrium only in the money market. So how exactly from the consumption goods market equilibrium we are deriving the capital goods market equilibrium, and how exactly are we doing the same for bond market equilibrium? The linkage between the markets is being done with the help of a very important microeconomic concept, which is known as the Walras law. So what exactly does Walras law state? Walras law states that if there are k microeconomic units in any economy, out of which k minus 1 units are already in the state of equilibrium, then the kth market will also be in the state of equilibrium. So the equilibrium in the k minus 1 microeconomic markets will imply the equilibrium in the kth market as well. If we want to represent this mathematically, we can say that the summation of excess demand will be equal to 0 for all the microeconomic units. That means if in any microeconomic unit there is an excess demand, corresponding to the value of excess demand, there must be an excess supply in some other market or markets such that their summation is equal to 0, because excess supply is nothing but negative excess demand. So how exactly does Walras law link the markets? See, the IS curve will show the equilibrium situation in the consumption goods market. Now, if the consumption goods market is in the state of equilibrium, then by the virtue of Walras law, we can say that the capital goods market will also be in the state of equilibrium. In a similar way, the LM curve will show the money market equilibrium. So, if the money market is in the state of equilibrium by the virtue of Walras law, we can say that the bond market will also be in the state of equilibrium. So, the Walras law helps to link the different markets together, and using this concept of Walras law, if we consider the interaction between the IS and the LM curves, we are able to establish the equilibrium situation in both the markets together, that is the goods market as well as the wealth market. So our primary point of concern under ISLM is to find out the point where the IS and the LM curves are intersecting, because that particular point will give us the equilibrium point, and this equilibrium, unlike the simple Keynesian model's equilibrium, will be the equilibrium where both the goods as well as the wealth markets are attaining equilibrium at the same point of time. So now we come to the derivation of the IS curve. The derivation of the IS curve can be done graphically as well as mathematically. We will be doing both the approaches, but first of all we will be proceeding with the mathematical approach, because that will help us to get an idea about the intercept and the slope of the IS curve. So the model that we are considering, it is a three-sector model. It is a closed economy. Basically, there is no export or import component. So our aggregate demand will be made up of three components. The aggregate demand will simply be equal to C, I and G. So there will be no NX or the net exports component, because it is a closed economy. Now, as there is the presence of government, there is government intervention in this model. So the consumption will be a function of the disposable income. The consumption will be equal to C bar plus MPC. This small c is equal to MPC into YD, where YD is equal to the disposable income. Now, if we consider a progressive taxation system where the tax rate is equal to small t, we can write this consumption function as C bar plus MPC into 1 minus t into Y, where this Y is your gross income, the total income, and the t is the proportional tax rate. It is a fraction lying between 0 and 1. So YD is the disposable income, and this YD is equal to Y minus T into Y, where Y is the total income as I've already stated, and TY is the amount of tax revenue that the government is collecting. So this is how the consumption function looks like. Now we come to the investment function. The investment function will be I bar minus B into R. This is the first point of difference between simple Keynesian model and ISLM. ISLM assumes investment to be a function of R, and it is equal to I bar minus B into R. This B, it is a positive constant. So the slope of the investment function is negative. The slope is equal to minus B when plotted with respect to R. And this is quite obvious, because if you think logically, if the rate of interest rises, those business firms who are borrowing money so that they can make investments, they will be demotivated or discouraged to borrow, because their cost of borrowing is rising. They have to pay higher and higher interests now for the amount that they are borrowing. So investment has got a negative relation with R, and the slope is minus B, where B is a positive constant, and this I bar is simply the autonomous part. So this is the autonomous part which is fixed, and this is the induced part. And the third component is G. Just for the sake of simplicity, we assume the government spending or the government expenditure to be a constant, and it is equal to G bar. So combining all of them, we get the aggregate demand function, and the aggregate demand function will be equal to C bar plus I bar plus G bar plus MPC into 1 minus T into Y minus BR. When we are clubbing all the three sectors contribution together, we are getting aggregate demand to be equal to C bar plus I bar plus G bar plus MPC into 1 minus T into Y minus B into R. This part is the autonomous part or the fixed part, and just we can make one manipulation to make our aggregate demand curve look a bit simpler. We can consider this to be equal to A bar minus B into R plus MPC into 1 minus T into Y, where this A bar component is simply equal to C bar plus I bar plus G bar. So we have derived the aggregate demand curve. Now we come to the equilibrium. At equilibrium in the product market, we know the Y value, it should be equal to aggregate demand, because this Y is the aggregate supply. So we can write this as Y equals to A bar minus B into R plus MPC into 1 minus T into Y. This is the aggregate demand curves equation that we derived. So now if we bring all the y terms to one side, we will get y into 1 minus MPC into 1 minus t into y equals to a bar minus br. So this is what the equation of the IS curve is. Now we can make a slight modification here, and we will ultimately get r equals to a bar by b minus 1 minus MPC into 1 minus t into y whole divided by b. This is what the equation of the IS curve is, and if we plot the IS curve in the RY plane, you will see that a bar by b, this is a positive constant, because a bar, as I've already stated, is equal to c bar plus I bar plus g bar. So it is just the summation of all the autonomous or the constant parts, and b is a positive constant, I've already mentioned that, and the slope of the IS curve is 1 minus MPC into 1 minus t by b. This value, if we ignore the sign, this value will be positive, because 1 minus t is a fraction. T is a positive proper fraction, I've already stated, because progressive tax rate has to be a fraction. It cannot be equal to 1 or more than 1. So it will be lying between 0 and 1. So 1 minus t will be a positive proper fraction. Again, MPC is a positive proper fraction lying between 0 and 1. The product of two positive proper fractions is a smaller positive proper fraction. So 1 minus a proper fraction which is positive will give us another positive proper fraction. So if we ignore the sign, this value is positive. If this value is positive, now if you consider the sign, you will see that the slope is negative. So the IS curve has got a positive vertical intercept, and the slope is negative when you are plotting the IS curve in the RY plane. So this is what the basic equation of the IS curve is.